Joining me now from New York is journalist and commentator Irin Carmon. She's a national reporter for MSNBC. She covers women, politics, and culture. And she's co-author of a terrific New York Times bestseller, Notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. An unusual book it doesn't have a flap cover. It has drawings. It has notations on the side. How did you decide on this unusual way to produce a book?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Larry. Our book was born when my co-author, Shana Kniznik, was a law student. She was so inspired by Justice Ginsburg's dissent in the voting rights case that she created a tribute on Tumblr, on a blog, that juxtaposed Justice Ginsburg with the 300-pound gangster rapper, Notorious B.I.G. So from the beginning, this was not your usual Supreme Court biography. This really started as a tongue-in-cheek, fun celebration of Justice Ginsburg. And what we wanted to do with the book is to take the excitement around Justice Ginsburg's voice, tell the story of her life, tell the story of the causes and the struggle to which she devoted that life and is still devoting, but keep that kind of fun spirit that really began with the Tumblr and the spirit of the internet, for sure.
In the author's note for the book, you write you were frankly in awe of what you learned about her. Mm-hmm. What awed you?
Well, this is somebody who overcame tremendous personal hardship. She lost her mother the day before her high school graduation. Her husband got cancer when she was in law school, and she stayed up all night typing up his papers and her own, still tied for first in her law school class, was denied a job at every turn despite being so excellent in her studies, and yet still managed to spend almost a decade winning 5 cases before the Supreme Court, transforming the law for women. As a Supreme Court justice, she's had cancer twice, but she's never missed a day on the bench. At 82 years old, she's as sharp as she ever was, and she's still using her voice to stand up for women and for marginalized people. So yeah, I think that there's a lot to be in awe about.
She's a fellow Brooklynite, too.
That's true, just like Notorious B.I.G.
What impact has she had? She's the most senior member now, right?
She's the most senior member of the liberals.
Right. What impact has this had on her on the court? Does she feel the impact she has?
The Notorious RBG, yeah. Or in terms of her work?
Her work. Does she know what she's become in this country?
Yeah, I mean, look, some people have said that even if Justice Ginsburg had never been appointed to the Supreme Court in 1993 by Bill Clinton, she would have already been a hero for what she did for women in the law. When she was the co-director of the ACLU Women's Rights Project, she managed to make it so that sex discrimination was barred under the Constitution, which when she started out was not the case. But as a Supreme Court justice, she's actually spent most of her time in the minority. She's had a few important majority decisions, but ever since Bush v. Gore and the fact that 2 very conservative Republican-appointed judges have joined her on the court, she's actually become the senior justice in the minority who's speaking out in cases like Citizens United, Hobby Lobby, the voting rights case, standing up and saying that the court's move to the right is radical, is not okay. She's doing so in a very reasoned way. I mean, it's not exactly, a hip-hop style slam, but I think in terms of how liberals of this country feel, she's very much speaking for them and their frustrations that they feel with the court.
Irin, how do you explain the strange relationship and friendship with the most ardent opponent of hers, Justice Scalia?
There are no 2 justices on the Supreme Court more different than Justice Scalia and Justice Ginsburg, but there are a lot of things about her that really defy stereotypes. Despite the fact that she used to work at the ACLU, she's a huge liberal, she's an unapologetic feminist. She really sees the utility in making friendships across the aisle. And she and Justice Scalia actually go way back. They've known each other since the 70s. They sat on the D.C. Circuit Court. And it's a lifetime appointment. I mean, if you make enemies on the court, you're going to have a pretty miserable rest of your life tenure. And the biggest thing, I think, the biggest reason why they're friends is because he makes her laugh.
But they travel together, right? They go to opera together. They're very friendly.
Yes, and he's her shopping buddy. That was something that we learned for the book. Her husband did not like going shopping, so Nino, as his nickname is, used to go with her to go shopping.
Have they agreed much at all? Have they had agreeing opinions?
Not on the kinds of cases that you and I would consider the interesting or the controversial ones. I mean, there are certainly unanimous opinions on the court, but in terms of the 5-4 opinions that concern fundamental rights that are really politically contentious, you're not going to often find them on the same side.
Did she give you access for the book?
So while we were working on the book, I was able to interview Justice Ginsburg in my role at MSNBC, and I also was able to meet with her to fact-check certain parts of the book. We spoke to her clerks, we spoke to her family members, and even though this was not an authorized biography, I think Justice Ginsburg is actually pretty amused by the Notorious RBG phenomenon. What she has said in the past about it is that I can't take credit for the Notorious RBG, but I like it, and so do my grandchildren.
How's her health right now?
When I spoke to her in February, Justice Ginsburg said that her health is just fine. In November, she had a heart stent put in. She temporarily, was taken to the hospital, but was back on the bench again for oral argument the very next week. She told my co-author, Shauna, I'll be back doing push-ups soon. One of the lighter parts of our book, even though, we engage with Justice Ginsburg as a litigator and a jurist and an intellectual, we also include the Notorious RBG workout. We interview Justice Ginsburg's trainer. So despite the fact that she's 82 years old and she's had cancer twice, she can actually do 20 push-ups, which is more push-ups than either I or my co-author can do.
This election will have a great effect on the Supreme Court, will it not?
Mm-hmm.
If a Republican is elected, that will send the Supreme Court more to the right. If a Democrat is elected, more to the left, because it's expected there'll be how many resignees in the next 4 years?
Well, we don't know who exactly is going to resign, but what we do know is that the average retirement age for Supreme Court justices is around 78. And right now, by next year, there are going to be 3 Supreme Court justices who are over 80. We also note that since Roberts and Alito were appointed to the court, there have been more than 150 5-4 decisions. So the Supreme Court right now is hanging on this thin reed of the fact that Justice Anthony Kennedy sometimes sides with the liberals, sometimes sides with the conservatives, and the same with Chief Justice Roberts. So I think it's fair to say that especially now, since Congress is very deeply divided along partisan lines, the Supreme Court is already extremely powerful. It's already going to hear a lot of really, really important cases just this term, a lot of really politically complicated and weighted ones, but that by next year, it seems clear that whoever is elected is going to have an opportunity to affect the Supreme Court for the next lifetime. I mean, we're talking about lifetime appointments here. So, you're hearing it a lot more from Republicans, but I think it's fair to say that the Supreme Court is, if not the number one, an extremely important issue in next year's election, and whoever wins is going to have an opportunity to shape it for a generation.
If it's a Democrat, do you think they might overthrow Citizens United?
I think that if they have an opportunity to replace the Republicans on the court, which we'll see, Justice Scalia is right now the oldest. Justice Kennedy is getting up there too. I know that that's a priority. Both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have said that they support a constitutional amendment, which is the only other way that Citizens United could be overturned. But let's just look at this term alone, what they have. We don't even have to wait for this kind of consequential change for the next presidential election, because in this term alone, the Supreme Court is going to be hearing abortion rights, affirmative action, teachers' unions. It's very likely to hear a challenge to President Obama's immigration policies. And that's just what we know about already. So I think, we better buckle up. It's going to be a really serious term, just this one coming up.
Thank you, Irin. This is a great book.
Thank you very much, Larry. Great to be with you.